I'm gonna draw your mom.
Welcome to the motherfucking lady. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. An interesting tweet from veteran manager Lee Eaton, who says, Elizabeth Oshoba versus Sarah Mahfoud has been called for the vacant interim title, but should be upgraded due to Menka's long-term injury. Said this about a week and a half ago.
And this is via the IBF at 126 pounds, where Amanda Serrano holds 2 alphabet titles.
And America's own Tiaria Brown, she's got the WBC. Germany's own Nina Menka has the IBF. To my knowledge, she still has it. She hasn't been stripped of it, but due to a nagging back injury that she's already had worked on once, that flared up again after the Diana Vargas fight, her title reign may be in jeopardy.
Whether the IBF decides to strip her of the title due to inability to defend it, or if they let her hang on to it and she has to face the winner of this fight, the winner of Oshoba versus Mahfoud.
Nigeria's own Elizabeth Oshoba, who was recently picked up by MVP and made her debut in knockout fashion, sports an unblemished record of 10 wins with no losses and no draws, 6 knockouts. A very tall fighter for the featherweight division. Lots of height, lots of length, lots of power.
Inching closer to fighting for a full alphabet title.
She could end up facing the former champion, Sarah Mahfoud, who sports a professional record of 15 wins with 2 losses and no draws, 3 knockouts, having never been knocked out in 17 professional bouts. The former IBF champion. An interesting tidbit, when she was IBF champion, she successfully defended her title against Nina Menka, who holds that same title now.
The only issue is that Sarah would have to make it through Elizabeth Oshoba to get there, to fight Nina Menka for a second time, and unfortunately for Sarah, I don't think she's going to. If this fight actually goes through and they make it, not only do I think Sarah loses, but I think Sarah might get stopped for the first time in her career.
Last in action, all the way back there in November of 2024 against Brazil's own Danila Ramos, who Sarah beat by way of a majority decision. She sat out all of last year, and she hasn't fought yet this one, and I know of no tentative plans for her to return to action.
Save this order from the IBF.
Only having 2 recorded losses to 2 very good fighters in Amendia Serrano and Sky Nicholson. You do need to compete at a certain level to beat Sarah Mahfoud, and I think that Elizabeth Oshoba is on the level.
Oshoba.
Because the thing about Elizabeth Oshoba is she's a very tall fighter, a very long fighter, and a very strong fighter. Very aggressive, whereas Sarah is more defensively minded. She likes to circle away from the opponent, use the ring, box on the perimeter, and against the taller fighter, that's not a good idea.
Oshoba.
Do you remember what you saw in the Sebastian Fundora versus Keith Thurman fight? Keith Thurman looking to circle away and stay on the outside of Sebastian, but he couldn't, because Sebastian's just too tall, too long. You're a sitting duck out there.
Oshoba.
And that's what Sarah Mahfoud would be, trying to box on the outside of Elizabeth Oshoba. Her only hope of winning this fight would be to take it to the taller fighter, crowd the pocket and work them from the inside out. And Sarah just isn't that kind of fighter.
Especially not having been out for about a year and a half.
She would have amassed significant ring rust that she needs to shake off. In this fight with Elizabeth, this wouldn't be no tune-up fight to shake off no cobwebs. This would be a fight, a fight that I think not only Sarah might lose, but Sarah might get stopped if it goes through.
There is a chance that it doesn't, that Sarah decides to forego this ordered fight with Elizabeth Oshoba.
If she does, Elizabeth would end up fighting the next highest ranked contender, which currently is Magali Rodriguez, very familiar fighter who's been in there with a lot of familiar faces, and I could see that happening too.
Is that Tia May 8 and I see ranked behind Magali?
Yes, it is, but I don't think that Tia and Elizabeth are on a collision course, even though Tia is there. This is a fighter with just a handful of fights who I don't think is ready to be boxing for an alphabet title.
Yeah, pay her no mind. It's not going to be Oshoba versus Ayton. It's either going to be Elizabeth Oshoba versus Sarah Mahfoud, or Elizabeth Oshoba versus Magali Rodriguez, or somebody else in those rankings. It's not going to be Tia Ayton.
And so things are starting to happen for Nigeria's own unbeaten up-and-comer, unbeaten hard-punching featherweight Elizabeth Oshoba, who's very close to challenging for world title honors. As a result of her pairing up with MVP, they're making things happen for her.
So we'll see what happens in the coming weeks and months because Elizabeth wants her title shot and somebody's got to give it to her.
This new era, a fighter can lose a fight. He can fight for a title, lose a fight for a title again, lose a fight, and continue to keep fighting until he's able to win a belt. Whereas I come from an era when you fight, you get all the way up to the top and you lose, you have to go down, a couple levels and earn that to go back up to fight for a title. But there are so many talented fighters in today's time, so many young great champions, and I'm happy that I was able to see the sport of boxing just change. But there's so many great fighters in today's time.
Floyd, your opponent is a kickboxer.
That is what Floyd Mayweather had to say at the kickoff press conference for the upcoming Mike Zambides fight, that maybe they're making it too easy for these fighters to get their hands on alphabet titles when a lot of the time they're coming off of losses. When you consider this past weekend's fight between Daniel Dubois and Fabio Wortley, no one could argue that Daniel definitely won the fight, but did he actually deserve to be there?
He's still coming off the knockout loss to Usyk.
From losing a fight for the undisputed crown to then getting to challenge again for a title right after that.
There's something to be said about that. I wouldn't say that Daniel winning the title watered down the heavyweight division. I think for a better example, you'd have to go to welterweight, where Ryan Garcia, who was already afforded the chance to box for a WBA title against Rolly.
I really think that's who Floyd Mayweather was talking about, and that's who he had in mind. I think he was referring to Ryan. He just didn't say it by name. But Ryan Garcia, who bear in mind was coming off a suspension for a doping violation, was immediately fast-tracked to a WBA title fight with Rolly Romero, coming off a suspension, loses the fight with Rolly just to get another title shot with another alphabet organization,
the WBC.
So you look at something like that and you wonder, are they making it too easy for these fighters to get their hands on these titles? And in doing so, are we really seeing the best versus the best?
Consider that Rolly Romero and Ryan Garcia fought for a version of a WBA title, neither of them really being welterweights, but they both currently reign as welterweight champions.
Also, bear in mind that Rolly Romero hasn't had a fight since that fight with Ryan Garcia. He's got a WBA title that's not in circulation. Nobody's getting a fight for it because he's holding it up. And when you look at Rolly and you look at Ryan, you're telling me that these two guys are two of the best welterweights in the world.
I don't believe it.
I think there are welterweights right now that could beat them both in the same night. The problem is they're not as popular as they are. They're not as well known. So the alphabets don't carve out a lane for them like they do for Ryan, like they do for Rolly. So what you end up with is a watered down division where the best really aren't fighting the best, and you can see that.
Because Ryan and Rolly ain't the best. Are you joking?
The talent of the fighters doesn't jump out at the screen at you like it used to with fighters like Oscar De La Hoya and Felix Trinidad when they fought each other, Sugar Ray Leonard and Tommy Hearns, where you could see these guys are elite. They are world class. That doesn't come across when a Ryan Garcia fights a Rolly Romero or a Mario Barrios for that matter, because who on earth thought Mario Barrios was an elite welterweight?
I didn't.
I mean, the entire story with that guy is he was in the right place at the right time, but how many times does that happen before it starts to look suspicious?
Oh, Mario's in the right place at the right time, Rolly's in the right place at the right time, then Ryan.
But how many times does that happen before it starts to look suspicious? So what you're ending up with is a weaker welterweight division with less capable fighters than it could be at the very top, not because they're capable, not because they're able, but because they're popular. The talent,
it doesn't jump out at the screen at you.
Because they're not the most talented, they are the most privileged. It's been about a year since Rolly Romero fought Ryan Garcia. Why isn't the WBA bogging him down with a mandatory? And what about the World Boxing Council? When are they going to order a mandatory for Ryan?
It was about 15 minutes after Dimitri Bivol won the WBC title, they ordered the Benavidez fight. And bear in mind, it wasn't even their turn.
They were very Johnny on the spot with Dimitri Bivol, a Russian fighter. Why are they not so Johnny on the spot with Ryan, an American? It's because they're the most privileged. They're not the most talented, not the most able, not the most capable, just the most privileged.
Due to their online popularity.
Which wouldn't even be so bad if it were resulting in big gate receipts and big pay-per-view buys, but for all the times that Ryan's been on pay-per-view, he only did real numbers once.
3 years ago with Javante Davis.
Since then, every pay-per-view he's headlined, whether it was the Devin Haney pay-per-view or the Rolly Romero pay-per-view, the more recent Mario Barrios pay-per-view.
Which one of them shits brought in big numbers?
I'm pretty sure that if Ryan would have done 300,000 or 500,000 with any of those pay-per-views, they would have been shouting from the rooftops about it, but they weren't because it didn't.
So you're giving this guy's opportunities he don't deserve on the premise of how popular he is, except his popularity isn't resulting in big gate receipts. It's not resulting in big pay-per-view buys, and you're actually hurting the division because you're not allowing the top talent to permeate to the top the way that it's supposed to. You are instead affording privileges to fighters that don't deserve them, and they're not even that good.
Floyd Mayweather definitely raised a valid point. They're making it too easy for today's boxer to get at a world title. You could be coming off a loss.
You're right back in a title fight in your very next fight. Elsewhere in the world of boxing, Frank Warren drops contract bombshell that stops Dana White from promoting Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury. Frank has poured cold water on Dana White's claims that he will promote Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury. Warren told assembled media on Saturday night, after Daniel Dubois' gutsy stoppage win over Fabio Wardley, that it is contractually impossible for the Zuffa boxing chief to be involved in such a capacity.
To where he's sort of trying to take full credit for promoting the event?
Well, he's not promoting Joshua versus Fury because the contract with Tyson says that Zuffa will not be able to promote that fight, said Warren. I don't know where he's got that from. Ask him. I mean, it's just bullshit. When Warren's comments were put to White at the Zuffa Boxing 06 post-fight press conference on Sunday, he quipped, "Then he must be right. I'm just gonna leave that one alone," he added. Apparently, I'm not the promoter, according to some people.
He was being sarcastic, but where Frank Warren might be onto something is that Dana White made similar claims about Conor Benn's fight with Regis Prograis and what was Tyson Fury's ring return. It was initially reported that Zuffa would be the lead promoter for that show just for them to change it at the last minute to Spencer Brown and Gold Star.
And you can go look at it right now on BoxRec. The registered promoter for that show is not Dana White and it's not Zuffa Boxing, it's Spencer Brown. So if the idea here was to flex the optics, it's not the flex you're making it out to be if you have to take your bows from behind stage.
Frank may be telling the truth. Earlier this year, Frank Warren threatened legal action against Saudi Arabian state-owned entertainment and hospitality company Sela and TKO Group Holdings, the American media conglomerate that owns the UFC and WWE. TKO inked a 5-year partnership with Sela and Saudi power broker Turki El Al Sheikh to form Zuffa Boxing last year. Warren alleged in a letter before action sent to relevant parties that the joint venture breached contracts that his promotional outfit Queensberry had signed with the Saudis and TKO. Queensberry claims to have signed an exclusive deal with Sela in September of 2023 to provide boxing services. Warren's company says it also reached a separate agreement with TKO granting the sports giant access to Queensberry's online data, including details of its contract with Sela. Queensberry alleges that TKO and Sela used privileged information to go behind its back to create their new entity.
In effect, letting the fox in the henhouse.
There has been no development on the case since February when it was revealed Warren was preparing legal action. El Sheikh and Warren sat next to each other at ringside for Fury's comeback fight with Arslanbek Makhmudov and will work together for Joshua versus Fury, which is being targeted for the back end of the year after both men participate in tune-up fights. Discussing the current state of his relationship with the Saudis in a recent appearance on the Ariel Helwani show, Warren said, "Riyadh season for me was a blast."
So you get the impression that they must have smoothed things over since February.
Everyone cooperated to put on some great shows and I enjoyed it, but things are what they are, and you have to keep evolving and moving on. They are talking about Agit Kabayel fighting Alexander Usyk. And Agit is with us, so if that is going to happen, then we are going to have to work together on it. The same with Hamza Shiraz. It's the same thing.
And it's the same thing with Matchroom. If you understand Anthony's arrangement with Matchroom, you'll understand that he has a lifetime contract with them that he signed years ago. So long as he dares to wear boxing gloves, he's a Matchroom fighter. And on DAZN, he's a flagship fighter. So there's no way you do anything with him and Tyson Fury where they're not involved.
In other words, it's not the flex that Dana White is making it out to be. You're promoting that fight about as much as Matchroom is promoting that fight, since their fighter is the other half of it.
And even worse, that it's not like you get to slap the Zuffa banner on it. You didn't get to slap the Zuffa banner on Fury's last fight, and you were supposed to be promoting that.
If you want to use Anthony Joshua for any one of your shows, what that essentially indicates is you're still relying on Zuffa's competition to provide the talent, because Zuffa themselves haven't built up any stars, and who knows if they'll be able to. All they're doing right now is throwing a lot of cash at a lot of familiar faces that were developed by other people, but over time, will you be able to develop your own fighters, or will you still need Matchrooms and Queensberries?
Because if you do, that's not exactly monopolizing the sport or running anybody out of business. All it really accents is what I've been saying. In the end, it's gonna boil down to know-how.
You know, some guys can get the girl with their natural charm and their natural wit, whereas other guys gotta flex all the money they got.
Spend it.
And end up taking the same girl home, but only one of them knows how to operate the equipment.
Don't let me till I come, please, please, please.
And that guy wouldn't have had to spend a fortune to do it, like the other. Zuffa's strategy of overpaying other people's fighters to have access to them is not sustainable in the long run.
And they're gonna have to overpay, because why else should they give you access to Anthony Joshua, or Agit Kabayel, or Hamza Shiraz, or any of the fighters they have under contract, the ones they've developed?
Which is what you don't know how to do, operating as the proverbial fox in the henhouse, the Trojan horse. Turkey El Sheikh may have learned something about Matchroom's inner workings and Queensberry's,
though not enough to pillage and plunder everything they've built. The years of know-how that they both represent, and what Turkey might have learned in the brief period that he's been working with them, is tantamount to a glance. It doesn't encompass all the years of know-how.
That you are still this reliant on what are other people's fighters. The story better change a year from now, because that's not a sustainable strategy, a long-term strategy. We already saw it. When Boxer debuted on Sky Sports, they started targeting Matchroom's fighters, and they actually got some of them to come over, but in the long run, it didn't pan out.
Could the same thing happen to Zuffa?
How many fighters do you have to overpay? How many times before it stops making sense? We are just in the beginning stages.
So I won't make any bold proclamations. We have to see what else Zuffa can come up with, but so far,
even with Turkey El Sheikh backing them, they still seem heavily reliant on what are other people's fighters, and I'm not even rooting for them to fail. I actually think it's a good thing that they're bringing Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua to Netflix instead of it being billed as a pay-per-view, because there are already too many of those.
I'm not against Zuffa. I like the shakeup that they're creating, that they're keeping everybody on their toes.
And I very much like the idea that I'll be able to watch Joshua versus Fury at no additional charge as part of a subscription.
I ain't against them.
I'm just saying, in the long run, it's gonna take more than asking for permission to use other people's fighters to really get somewhere.